We're live.
Okay, Gimel Elf, you're going to sing.
Yeah, I'm gonna sing on Nigen.
Okay.
We start on Nigen. Ayotzo etzave so far, dabro davar v'leyakom. Ayotzo etzave so far, dabro davar v'leyakom ki imanu kein. Ayotzo etzave so far, dabro davar v'leyakom ki imanu kein. Hey, ayotzo etzave so far, hey dabro davar v'leyakom. Ayotzo etzave so far, dabro davar v'leyakom ki imanu kein. Ayotzo etzave so far, dabro davar v'leyakom ki imanu kein.
Very nice. The story tonight, but before we tell the story, Omek, if you're listening, please give us a heads up. I missed you last week. I didn't see you were around.
Mitzalel, we might want to check the time first.
Oh, hey kids, what time is it?
Time for Gezintahait
It
3.
is time for Gezintahait Street, and the story for tonight is called A Lesson from a Young Trooper. Did I tell this lately? I don't think I
I
told
don't think
it.
so. I don't remember it this late.
The previous Rebbe once recalled a story that occurred when the Tzemach Tzedek attended a rabbinical conference in Petersburg, the capital of Tsarist Russia. At that time, an army unit of a few hundred Cantonists. You know what the Cantonists were? I'm sure you do.
The Cantonists. Yeah, these was the guys that they was trying to take when they was children's.
They weren't trying, they did take
They
them.
took them.
7 and 8-year-old boys, and they conscripted them in the Russian army for 25 years.
That's a long time for a
The
little
evil
boy.
Tsar Nicholas wanted them to forget their Judaism. That was the plan. And these Cantonists were camped in Kronstadt, which was a close suburb of Petersburg. When the young Jewish soldiers in Kronstadt heard that the Tzemach Tzedek was nearby, they requested he come to speak to them. Miraculously, permission was given for the Rebbe to visit the boys. When he got there, the young soldiers said, "Rebbe, we've polished our buttons in honor of your visit. Now we want you to polish and refine our souls, which have become coarsened." Imagine how that hit the Rebbe. The Tzemach Tzedek responded by delivering a mimer in a way they could understand, and then he told them that even though they had no Jewish books, those who remembered some of the Psalms of King David should teach the others so that they would know them by heart. And their heartfelt prayers of these Psalms would be similar to the way a soldier polishes his buttons. He told them they were able to polish their souls by saying these Psalms of David. Then the Rebbe explained that just like the soldiers polished their buttons with earth and water, that's what they used to use to polish the buttons, so too, polishing the soul is done with earth and water. Earth represents the words of the Psalms, the words of the prayer, and water represents the tears which accompany those ancient prayers. One young soldier piped up, "But Rebbe, when a soldier goes to war, he goes happily, with a victory march, not with tears." Tzemach Tzedek said, "You're right." He's saying that happiness and serving Hashem is the way to beat the evil impulse. From that time on, all the Chabad Rebbe's emphasized that our service should be infused with happiness, and likewise, our service of conquering the evil impulse must be performed with happiness. In that way, our fight will take place with extra strength And so too, our victory will occur in a faster and an easier way. Now, I'm going to tell a second story of the Tzemach Tzedek, which also highlights this idea of serving Hashem happily. In a letter to a chassid whose view was dark and melancholy, called Morish Chora, he was naturally in a state of low, how do you say Morish Chora? He always had a black
dark
mood.
mood, yeah.
And the Tzemach Tzedek wrote him a letter, and he shared a story that happened to him. Once he was davening Mariv, the evening prayer, with a tune he described as illustrating the attitude of a black mood. It was like a depressing kind of a tune. His grandfather, the Alter Rebbe, indicated he should stop singing that song, and he did. And after the prayers, the Alter Rebbe told him a teaching he had received from his Rebbe, the Maggid. Ezekiel, remember Yechezkel, had a vision of something similar to a man on a throne, meaning that the godly man is similar to the man down here. And according to our attitude, the heavenly man is like a shadow who goes according to our attitude. When we are sad and melancholy, the face of the supernal man reflects that. And we serve with joy. The higher man, the godly man, reveals a happy and a joyous face. Okay. That's the story for
That's
today.
a great story.
Yeah.
That's something.
Yeah, that's the way to serve Hashem with happiness.
With happiness and joy.
And then Hashem will be happy. And then things will be good.
Yeah, I agree with Sally.
Okay. Now, I guess it was a few months ago, but it was last year certainly, we explained how to understand the details and explanation of creation of something from nothing. So since we did it already, and not only we did it, I went over it, and then Gimel Aleph went over it again. So why are we doing it again? Well, the world is created brand new every day. And not just every day, every minute. So this understanding creation from nothing is a very timely subject.
Shall we have a niggin first?
Yes, 100%.
Hey ya ya did I ya my ya ya did I ya my ya did I ya my ya 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 ay ya did I ya my ya ya did I ya my ya did I ya ay ya 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 hey ya did I ya my did I ya my ya 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 did I ya my did I ya my ya ya hey ya did I ya my did I ya hey ya ya my ya 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 my did I ya my did I ya hey ya 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 aha hey ya 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 did I ya my ya 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 did I hey ya ya hey ya 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 aha hey ay ya 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 my ya 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 did I hey ya ya did I my ya 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 hey ya 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 ay ya did I ya my ya ya did I ya my ya did I ya ay ya 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 my ya did I ya ay ya ya did I ya my ya did I ya 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 hey ya 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 my did I ya 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 my ya 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 my did I ya my did I ya 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 hey ya 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 my did I ya my ya 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 my ya 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 my did I ya my did I ya 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 hey hey la ya did I ma ba ba my did I hey la ra hey ya ya yo ya hey ya 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 ma ya 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 did I hey ya ya did I ma ya 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 hey ya 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 ay ya did I ya ma ya ya did I ya ay ya da ya, my ya 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 ya, ay ya da ya, my ya ya da ya, ay ya da ya, say ay ho.
Thanks, Gimel Ella.
Great pleasure, Mitzadim.
That was beautiful. Now, I thought the bass player was back there. Before creation something from nothing, we explain what Chabad is, Chachma, Bina, and Das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. And we're going to use those principles to understand how Hashem creates a separate existence from nothing. Nothing being the godly nothing that can't be grasped or realized at all. And Hashem creates an existence from that level. And this understanding through the process of contemplation. What's contemplation called, Gimel Ellis?
Hisbonenus.
Hisbonenus. And the reason it's called Hisbonenus is because the word Bina is in there. It means we're going to actually understand how it works so we can internalize it. So we begin by contemplating the letters and words of divine speech. And those letters combine to form words of divine utterances that create the world from nothing. Let there be light. If these letters were to cease, then creation would return to nothing. If Hashem would stop saying, let there be light, there would be no light, and it would be as if it never existed at all. And this contemplation leads to the understanding of how Malchus of Atzilus. Let's go back. We just said there's a godly man sitting on a throne. And it's not that Hashem has the form of a man. It's Hashem after all. But for example, Hashem dresses himself in attributes. So when he shows kindness, that's called his right arm. His right arm is only a symbol for how Hashem shows kindness. He's much higher than any attributes. But he comes into attributes to be able to connect with us. So what the godly brain, that is how Hashem connects to us through his attributes of intellect, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. Naturally, if Hashem has a brain, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge, then he also has a heart, which includes kindness and strictness and beauty. And finally, from these emotion attributes come out thought and speech. Let there be light, a revelation of godly kindness. And the thought and the speech, that's called Malchus of Atzilus, the decree of the king, the godly speech. It is the lowest sphere of the highest spiritual world, the emanated world, and how this Malchus of the emanated world, of the godly world, of the world that we call nothing, is able to create and enliven worlds that appear to be separate from him and feel separate from him. And it's called the lower unity, how the godly speech and thought unifies with the separate worlds. That's called the lower unity, how Malchus of Atzilus is connected to the separate worlds. Next, we contemplate the hidden worlds after we do the lower unity. And we understand the separate worlds and how they're all included in Malchus of Atzilus. Then we contemplate the hidden worlds, the worlds of nothing, so to speak. The worlds not revealed. These worlds are unified with the emanator, the source of all that exists. And that's called the higher unity. So you have the lower unity, how the godly thought and speech is unified with the separate worlds. And you have the higher unity, how the godly manifestation is unified in its source, the higher unity. And finally, after all of that, we contemplate the true being, Hashem, which is higher than, completely higher than all those levels, Hashem himself, which is the true nullification of all worlds to the essence of the infinite light. And this is the true existence to which everything else has no existence at all. So whether you're talking spirituality or physicality, Hashem himself is higher than both, and he's the one that brings both into being. And this entire contemplation is hinted in the words, "Hear, O Israel, Shema Yisroel." In the word Shema, listen, the first two letters is Shin Mem, which is Shem, which means name. And the last letter is an Ayin, which is the number 70. Ayin symbolizes the number 70. And 70 goes on the godly attributes. There's 7 attributes: Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. And those attributes, because they come out, you have to say they exist in Hashem. And that ayin, that 70, the last letter of the word Shema, is the symbol of those godly attributes. The word Shem, the word name, includes the whole contemplation that we talked about. Every creation and every emanation is all included only in name. It only comes from Hashem's name. Malchus is called name. So we say Shema, Shem, Ayin. The Shem is completely nullified to the Ayin, the 7 godly attributes. And through that we reach the essence of the Jewish soul. How do we express the essence of the Jewish soul?
The Yechida.
Yisroel. Shema Yisroel. And then we go up and we indicate the essence of Hashem itself, Hashem Elokeinu. Havaya, our God. And then we bring it down so that finally we indicate that Hashem is the chief of the worlds, that he is unified in the heavens and the earth and the 4 directions, which is included in the word Echad. So when we say Shema Yisroel, we're unifying Hashem himself with the creation. Is that okay? We're doing all right?
Yeah, what's amazing is that's in like one of the Hayim names right around now too.
Yeah?
Yeah. The Shema Yisrael is in one of the Hayim names. I don't remember. I think maybe tomorrow's even.
Oh, that'll be interesting. This is all incorporated in the ascending aspect, Shema Yisrael, Shem Elokeinu, of the contemplation of the Hisbonenus. And through this ascent, the essence of the Jewish soul, like we said, Yisroel is revealed, Shema Yisroel. The Jewish soul is revealed as exalted even above the divine emotion attributes. Shema, Shem, Ayin is the divine emotion attributes, and then you go higher to the essence of the Jewish soul, Yisroel. Next is Havaya Elokeinu, the one and only Hashem, our God, which indicates the essence and being of Hashem himself. And finally, Hashem is in all creations. We testify that this God, this is our God, Hashem himself, is unified in all the creations. The word one, Echad, is like we said, the Aleph is the chief, the Alufo Shel Olam, the head boss, The Ches is the seven heavens and the earth, and the Dalet is the four directions. So we're testifying and actually unifying Hashem into the world through this sentence, Shema Yisrael. Finally, our contemplation descends in realizing how the essence of Hashem is one, Echad, even in those worlds which are created from His name. He has the true power to create something from nothing, and it's done through His glorious name, Malchus, His kingship. Like it says in the next sentence, blessed be the glory of His name and kingship forever and ever. Because really everything is from Hashem. Like the Rambam says, from His true existence, everything else, all other existences exist. You want to do a niggun or should I keep going?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say hello, Abba Steinhauser and Oma Kadison, our dear friend Ori Heinen, and Angelica, and Erika, and Caroline, and Baruch Shalom, and Bob Nagin, and Mendel Morozov, Marla Emder, Luigi Luisandri, and the Leib Barnett, and Marla Emder, and all of our dear friends, hello. It's so nice to see you. Before we say Nigan, I looked it up over here on off in my iPhone. When I have gesehen is one of this is for the 12th of Cheshbon, so it's actually tonight. It's today's. So it's amazing that you.
It's a nice press.
So one of the Alter Rebbe's early teachings, which would then they used to call Werter. It means literally in English it means words, but it means like short sayings. Shema Yisrael. A Jew senses that Havaya Elokeinu, our strength and our life is beyond nature, and Havaya Echad, Havaya is one.
Nice.
And now for Anigi. Hey yo ye na nam o ye di mamam o ye di mamam. Oh ye nanam, oh ye di ma oh ye di ma te ya ma ay, oh ye di ma oh ye na oh ye nam, oh ye di mamam, te ya nam, mamam, oh ye nadam, mamam, oh ye di mamam, te yo ye nam, oh ye di nam, oh ye nam, mamam. Oh, yedidim, oh, yedim, oh, yedim, oh, yedim, oh, yenayam, Teyo yenanam, oh yedimamam, teya yobo yemam, teyo yeyayadamamam, amamam, oh yedimamam, teya oh yo nadam, teya mamam, oh yo nadam, teya mamama, oh amam, oh yedi mamam, oh yedida mamam, oh Amam oye yamamam oye dimamam te ya yanam amamam oye nadam amamam oye dimamam te ya oye nadam Te ya mama oh ya yo naram mama oh ya amam oh ya di mama oh ya do ya di da mama amam oh ya mama oh ya di mama Ayawai nadam mamam oh yedi mamam te yai didim yai didim te yai didim ayinam te ya oh yedayam te ya oh yedai didim ayadai didim te ya mamam Oy nadam bam, oy nadam bam bam, ay day didim bam bam didim, te oy nadam oy nam, te ya oy nadam, te ya mama oy nay didim, te ya didim ay nadam bam oy nadam bam, oy nadam bam. Hoy!
Thank you. So this contemplation in the prayer Shema Yisroel, how Hashem is one with everything, is a similar process to what we learned about the intellect, Chabad, Chachma, Bina, and Das, wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. First, we go over the details of the contemplation until we reach the point of the explanation, which is called the depth of Bina. And we achieve it through the length and the width. The width being the explanation itself, and the length being the metaphors that bring it down. And once we reach that depth, the point of the explanation, we concentrate our mind on that point, and that allows us to reach even higher than the point of the explanation, to the chachma, to the wisdom itself, to the seeing of the light that Bina explained, that understanding explained, until finally, theoretically at least, we'll bond to the depth of the source of wisdom, the source of chachma, which is called the koach hamaskil. If you remember, we explained that in the brain, the right brain is the vessel to receive the flash of wisdom, of chachma. And the left brain is the vessel for the understanding of that chachma. And the back brain is the concentration brain that can concentrate on either the wisdom or its explanation. On top of that brain is some kind of a membrane, and higher than that is some kind of moisture. And there is seated the thing called the koach hamaskil, which is the source and the generator for the wisdom to come into the brain. And through the contemplation, it's possible even to reach that level.
It's a brain with a membrane.
A membrane. And he concentrates on that level, which is higher than the wisdom, until a new chachma, a new wisdom that he hadn't realized at all, is drawn down. And that level on the bond to the koach hamaskil, the das on the koach hamaskil, is a level called maimek. You don't have to try to hold that, but that's what it's called. It means a deep delver. So the reaching and bond to the koach hamaskil is the going up dynamic. Shema Yisrael, Abaya Elokeinu. And the new Chachma, that really Hashem is unified in the worlds, is the drawing down dynamic of that new Chachma. In other words, in the original contemplation, we contemplated the name, how everything comes from Malchus of Atzilus. And then we reach the level where we realize everything's included in Malchus of Atzilus, and then we go all the way up until Hashem himself, and then the coming down, how Hashem is unified in all those worlds which were called name. That is the new Chachma that didn't exist before when we did the original contemplation. And that is the Hisbonos, the contemplation on Shema Yisrael. And all this comes through starting with Iyun, starting with learning the details and going over the details on how the created worlds, meaning the separate worlds, are created and enlivened by the divine decree of Malchus of Atzilus. Let there be light. And after drawing down the realization that the unique one, Hashem himself, is in fact one with all of these creations, these creatures and emanations, and that we have actually accomplished the mitzvah of understanding Hashem's unity. It's a mitzvah. Shema Yisrael, listen Israel. Hashem is giving us a commandment to realize how he's one with everything. Then we can proceed to understand the first paragraph. After all of that, the first two lines of Shema, now we can understand the first paragraph. You remember what it says in the first paragraph? You should love the Lord your God. You remember that? And the particular commandments that are included in that paragraph, according to the construct is a good word.
Yeah, construct is like eight place.
Of a whole person. We just said that Shema Yisrael is Chachma and Bina. Now we're saying love the Lord your God, that's emotions. That's your heart. And then thought, speech, and action. That's how the heart becomes expressed. And that's a person. And finally, Iyun, the learning and going over the details of all this, leads to an arousal of love for Hashem. Like it says, there's a commandment, love the Lord your God. So you ask the question, how could you command somebody to love something? It's either worthy of love and he loves it, or it's not worthy of love and he doesn't. So how do you command someone to love something? So how does a person achieve this love he's commanded to have? By using his intellect to understand how great Hashem is. And once he understands a little bit of Hashem's greatness, then automatically he's going to love Hashem. And that love really includes three attributes: kindness, strictness, and beauty, which is a combination of kindness and strictness. And that love is accomplished through the absorption. The spiritual idea becomes absorbed in the physical brain. The light of godly understanding, which is spiritual, becomes absorbed in the physical brain through this process of Iyun, of understanding the details of the explanation. And that's where you see in a person, Hashem is one, all the way into the physical brain. And that's what's expressed in the second line of Shema, bless his glorious name forever and ever. Then finally, after you love him, you resolve to act. And that's included in the lower emotion attributes. Victory. How do you say hod? Splendor.
Like glory or splendor.
Yeah. Victory, splendor, and foundation. Foundation means the connection between the higher to the lower, like the foundation of a house connects the earth to the house. And finally, After you resolve to act, there's a resolution to bring about this victory. Finally, you have actual action. You should love includes three aspects: all your heart, all your soul, and all your might, which are all included in love. Those are the higher emotion attributes. Then you have the resolve to act, and that's included in the commandment, teach it to your children. In Kabbalah terms, the children will be Netzach and Hod of Chesed. And then the action, actual action, tie them to your arm and to your head and write them into a mezuzah. That's actual action. So you see here the stature of a person. He uses his mind to understand Shema Yisroel. He absorbs it into his brain, bless the glory of his name. That causes love, which included in love is love and strictness and beauty. And then he resolves to act according to that love. And then finally he acts. He puts on tefillin and writes a mezuzah. And all this comes through the contemplation of the Hisbonos with two nuns. Hisbonos with two nuns tells you, keep going over the explanation, hesitate, and keep going over it until it's understood thoroughly. Should we do a niggun now?
A niggun. Hey, I did it, oh, I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, oh, I did it, did it, bam, bam. Hey, oh, I did it, oh, I did it, I did it, I did it, la, la, oh, I did it, oh, I did it, did it, bam, bam. Hey, I did it, oh, wow, wow, oh, wow, 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 I did it, oh, wow, wow, yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, I did it, oh, wow, wow, oh, wow, 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 wow. Hi, oh, la la la, ya 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 ya. Aha, hi, hi, ya ya ya, ya ya, my diddy dam, wow, my diddy dam, la 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 la, la 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 la, my, oh, ya 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 ya, ya ya ya, diddy dam, ya ya ya, diddy dam, hey, la 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 la, la 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 la, oh, la 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 la. La 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 ya la wa wa la wa wa te yo ya la wa wa ya 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 ai hoi di lo bam 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 hey ya ya di ma wa di ma di da di lo bam bam hey di ma wa di ram bam bam hey wa di ma wa di ma di da di lo wa wa hey di ma wa di ma di ram bam bam te ya ya da di lo wa wa ma wa 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 ma wa wa ai ho di lo wa wa ma ya 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 te ya ya da di lo wa wa ma ya 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 ma wa wa ai ho di lo wa wa di la 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 ai ho ai ya ya ha wa wa ma da wa wa ya di da hey la 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 hey la 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 mai oh ya 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 hey wa ya 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 di da wa wa ma di da ya la 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 hey la 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 hey na di la la hey la wa 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 ay la di la wa wa ma ya 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 hey yo ya la di la wa wa ma ya 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 ma ya ya ay hoy di dam bam bam ay 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 hoy.
Hey, thank you. Very nice. So now, Reb Hillel, who's explaining the explanation of the Midler Rebbe, focuses more on the details. So far, he told us in general what's happening. We're using our mind to internalize this understanding of godliness, causes an emotional and actual action arousal. And now he's going to go back and explain the details of how this contemplation works with all of its particulars. So to understand all the detailed godly levels in the godly service and how all of them are manifest, we start with Iyun. We start by going on the details of how Hashem works in creating the creations from nothing. That's what we're going to explain now. Exactly how Hashem works in creating the separate worlds from nothing. And it is a person's purpose, his mission in the world, to bond his mind and the intention of his heart to this understanding of how Hashem brings the worlds into being. And it's called the light that fills all worlds. It is contracted to fill each world. It's not a trillion watts that's going to blow up the light bulb. According to the level, the light is contracted. And that explains how Malchus is unified in the created worlds through creating and enlivening them. The godly thought and speech are unified in the creations. How? By creating them and enlivening them. And that's called the lower unity. And that light that fits into the world is only a mere glimmer of the godly light, of the infinite light, which is tailored in a limited way to fill all worlds. Okay, Gimel Aleph? It's pretty clear.
That's pretty clear, B'Tzalel.
Through this understanding is drawn down a revelation of godliness into the soul of the person who does the contemplation, and even into the natural soul. Not just into the godly soul, into the natural soul. Into like what you consider yourself internally, an indwelling realization, rather than just in a surrounding way, oh, there's a God up there. No, an actual revelation of godliness in the person himself. Hashem is actually here with me. There's a story, a guy tells a story. He was a technical guy for a rock and roll band called the Rolling Stones. And he used to travel around with them. And he started to ask questions about spirituality and godliness. Until finally he was really bothered by this one question, where is God? So he met somebody that told him he should ask the Lubavitcher Rebbe if he wanted a clear answer. So he went to New York, to 770, and he told people he needs to ask the Rebbe a question. And they told him if he stands here on the walkway up to 770, the Rebbe is going to be coming up, and he could ask this question. So when the Rebbe walked up, he asked the Rebbe, he said, Rebbe, where's God? The Rebbe said, God is every place. The guy said, no, I want to know where God is. The Rebbe said again, God is every place. And this happened like, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 times. Finally, the Rebbe said, if you're asking like that, God is in your heart. So that's the same thing as this. There comes an internal realization that God is really here with me personally. That's what comes about through this contemplation. Not like the understanding of the light that surrounds all worlds. Of course, God is every place. He surrounds all worlds, which cannot be apprehended internally. You can't internalize that huge thing that God is every place. But only the fact of his exalted, wondrous existence, that you can get by contemplating how Hashem surrounds everything, can be realized, but not experienced. You can't really get it. You can understand it, like reading the blueprints of a house. You understand how the electric things work, but it's not the real turning on the light. Now, through this contemplation of the surrounding light, one has not fulfilled the commandment of knowing Hashem. The only way to fulfill the commandment of knowing Hashem is to internalize godliness, and that way you can know Hashem. And it's a commandment, Shema Yisroel, which is only fulfilled by absorbing and internalizing the revelation of godliness in the soul and in the natural soul. And after all is said and done, the main intention in understanding the light that fills all worlds is to realize how this contracted glimmer of infinite light that fills the worlds to enliven them, it's a very contracted little bit of light, and it enlivens the worlds and brings them into being, is not separate from Hashem himself. Even though it's a contracted light, it's Hashem himself that's contracting himself to fit inside. He contracts his infinite light to enliven limited worlds, and it's really Hashem himself, the essence of the infinite one, who fills these worlds and enlivens each particular world. Nevertheless, despite the contraction of his light to enliven limited worlds, there is no change in him, which in simple terms means he's completely separate from everything, and at the same time he's completely invested in everything, which is two opposite things at once. Like my friend Sergeant MacDoodle explained to me, that's the Ein Sof. Hashem is infinite, not just infinite beyond number. He's infinite in his ability to contract himself into small places. He can contract his infinite essence to be revealed in small places. And this is the mitzvah of Shema, listen, Israel. Meaning to understand. Shema means understand, like when you say listen. I have a friend, you explain something to him and he goes, I hear what you're saying. He doesn't mean he hears physically with his ear. It means he understands what I'm saying. And that's the idea of Shema. Listen, Israel. Understand. Hashem, our God, Havaya Elokeinu, is really the essence of the infinite light. Essentially higher than both the infilling light, the contracted light, and the surrounding light, the infinite light. Hashem is higher than both. And that Hashem is our God. He is the one that's with us in our heart. And he is the source of the Jewish soul. And the bina of this understanding of the light that fills all worlds has, guess what? A length,
and a width, and a depth.
And a depth. So we're going to go into those details. How do we look on time? Should we?
Well, let's see. What are we looking like over here?
What time do we start is the question.
47 minutes in.
Okay, so we'll keep going a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. The length of this understanding, it's amazing how he keeps focusing the microscope on more details and more details. The length of this understanding consists of bringing the explanation close to the mind. And how is that accomplished? Through known metaphors. Metaphors and examples. And those metaphors and examples brings this thing of how Hashem is dressed in the world close to a person's understanding. And how is that done? Through being dressed in physical examples. Until even a child could understand on his level this very high idea. And that's accomplished. How do you bring it close to the mind? Multiple metaphors for the godly dynamic. And how the worlds are brought into being from nothing, like the metaphor of a sun and a ray. The sun will be, the object of the metaphor will be Hashem, and the ray will be how he contracts himself to enliven the worlds and bring them into being. Or the glow of a candle. That's a second metaphor. Or how the soul enlivens the body, a third metaphor. Or the power of the actor in the act. What do you mean, the power of the actor in the act? There is a metaphor for that metaphor. And the metaphor for that metaphor is like a person who throws a stone. He's the actor. And he puts a power into that stone, so it appears that the stone is not connected to him. But the arc of the stone, and the speed of the stone, and where it's going to land, all comes from him. So too with Hashem. If you look up in the sky, you can convince yourself that it's all a coincidence. There was a big explosion, and coincidentally, the sun comes up at the correct time every morning. And coincidentally, the constellations in the summertime is the constellation of the lion, and the fall is the constellation of the lady. And you could convince yourself that it's a coincidence that there is no big juggler who's making all that stuff happen. But really, that's what it is. It's called the power of the actor in the act. And I understand the reason why we need that metaphor is so that we can have free choice. Because it appears there ain't nobody making it happen, even though there is the actor in those acts. Even though it's possible to understand the idea through one example, why do I need all those examples? Just let me have a sun and a ray. I understand there's this godly essence and a ray that comes off of him to create the worlds. So why do I need the other metaphors of a candle, power of the actor in the act, a soul in the body? They all illustrate the same point. There is an infinite, non-apprehended divine entity that's completely hidden from creation. At the same time, it's all pervasive in creation. So all the metaphors really illustrate that point. Nevertheless, by introducing multiple metaphors, the idea is brought closer to the understanding, to the vessel of the brain. And therefore, many examples are brought to explain every godly action of how the infinite is united in the world, and through all the metaphors together, will be understood how Hashem is unified with and in the worlds. But that is the length, the multiple metaphors. But to achieve a clear understanding of that unity, a person has to delve into the details of the metaphors to know the particular angle and detail that each one illustrates that the other one doesn't. It's not just a whole bunch of metaphors. Each one illustrates a particular point that the other one doesn't. And to get a clear understanding of how Hashem creates the world from nothing, you have to look at the metaphors and see how they differ. Because with the metaphors alone, one will only achieve the length, the bina of bina, bringing it close to the mind. But in delving to understand the godly action in creating the world from nothing, it's necessary to understand the point is illustrated by each metaphor that is not illustrated by the other ones. That each metaphor has its particular angles explaining. The difference between these points that are illustrated by each metaphor is called the width of Bina, as opposed to the length of Bina, which is just a whole bunch of metaphors. To know the difference between them is called the width of this Bina, of how Hashem creates the worlds. And it's called the Chachma of Bina, to which the depth, through which this width and this length will finally bring us to the depth of this Bina. How it is all included in Malchus of Atzilus. And through the length and the width, we will be able to achieve that depth. To understand all this well, we can point out that there are two different ways in general that the godly light is unified in the world. There's an essence that spreads out, godly energy, and there's a hidden thing that's revealed. Two different metaphors. One, a hidden thing that's revealed, and two, an essence that spreads out. I'm thinking this is a good place to start next time. How does that sound?
That sounds like a good place.
Let's have a niggin.
Okay. Oh wait, time out. First, we have to say hello to a few more people.
Okay.
Hello, Moshe Dweck and Robert Keith and Karin Devi and Niranjan and Rajesh and America Ayon and Ludmila Broder and Esteri Kabi. Hello everybody, thank you for joining us. And now the niggin. Hey,
I just wanted, before we sign off, I just want to just give a little introduction to how this works. For example, you have the metaphor of a sun and a ray. The sun can light up 1,000,000 houses all at once. Cook an egg on the sidewalk, grow a tree from the earth through photosynthesis, give a person a suntan, run an electric generator, and with all that, the sun never changes because everything is done through a ray. So why is that not enough to explain the creation of something from nothing? There's Hashem, and he gives out a ray that enlivens all the creatures. Because the ray of the sun does not enliven anything. It only shines on it. Therefore, we need another metaphor of how the soul enlivens a body. But the soul enlivening a body, the soul changes when it enlivens a body. It's concerned with the body. Therefore, we need the first metaphor of the sun, where the sun doesn't change while it's doing, and each metaphor is going to have its own point that's not included in the other metaphors. Now we're going to have a sign off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gezintahait, 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 my friends.
Remember, kids, Gezintahait.
Gezintahait, bam, 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 bam.